Welcome to the Dancing Dialogues. I'm Nikita Krishnan, a professional belly dancing artist and your host for this show. Dance is more than just what you see on the stage. It's the sweat and hard work behind every dance performance, untold stories and dedication of dancers. Through this podcast, we bring you those behind the scenes moments, connecting you with dancers' journey that any videos or posts can't. So let's go beyond the spotlight and truly experience the world of dance together. Today in this episode, we have Vinaya Kritika, who's a counseling psychologist and also someone who loves dancing. So today we're going to be having a conversation and diving deep into the psychology of dance and how the movement and dance in general leaves an impact on mental health. So let's welcome her, and I'm really looking forward to a beautiful conversation with her. Okay, Kritika, you have chosen psychotherapy as your profession, and you're also someone who loves dancing and who's also studied belly dancing. Now, how does these two coexist in your life?
That's such a beautiful place to start because I've always, whenever I've studied psychology as well as whenever I got to learn dance with you, I've realized that those aren't separate practices, but they kind of coincide to form two different doors of a house. Movement since we were kids have always been a language that we first learnt. A child, if they want to grab your attention, try to reach, they cling, they push, and even before they start talking or babbling things, the first thing that they start with is movement. And when a toddler is excited, we know how they love to jump up in joy and they spin around in circles. And all of these kind of become the blueprint for how your adult habits also form. So movement kind of becomes another version of the kind of person that you were as a kid. So you kind of try to understand the kind of safety that child grew up with, whether this child is open to their environment or if they're scared or if they learn to initiate conversations or take initiative to play. All of these can be noticed in the little movements that they start practicing as an adult as well. And I think in that sense, dance becomes a lot more vital for you to understand, especially in therapy when you're watching them sitting across a screen or when they're sitting across from you and you try to understand, I wonder what they're trying to say. And their words might say, yeah, I'm completely fine, but their body is rigid, their shoulders are frozen, they're probably covering themselves within themselves, and it might have been a practice to protect themselves, keep themselves safe before. And when you start noticing all of these movements, you start understanding the story beneath the story that they're saying. So I guess movement becomes very much more important in our field. So like I said, seeing them separately becomes a lot more difficult. I think they start looking like two sides of some language that we've learnt since time.
Before we actually get into the mental health aspect and even the dancing, I want you to help us understand these different terminologies like counseling psychologist and psychotherapist. So how is it all different from one another?
That's actually quite Indian based, I would say, because when you go abroad, their entire concept is you do a master's in psychology and you have certain hours of supervised work and you have certain hours of practice that you've done, and that leads to you getting a license to practice as a psychologist. So whatever umbrella term that you use, a psychologist, a counselor, a therapist, they all come under the same thing. But here in India, we only have one regulatory body, which is RCI, and the licensing only comes under a person who has done an MPhil, which would be a second master's that we do after psychology. Now, that person who has done and gotten a license in psychology would be called a clinical psychologist. Now, this person would be allowed to conduct assessments, would be able to diagnose disorders and give you a certificate for the kind of disorder that you might have when it comes to mental health. And the rest of us who get to do masters, and there's like 20,000 of us who graduate every year, and that trickles down to about 20 of us who get to do MPhil per year because we have such low number of colleges in India for it. And it is not a course that's available abroad. So I think to get licensing in India, it kind of becomes a lot more difficult. So instead, we get to practice directly after our masters because there is lesser regulation on that. So a lot of us get to private practice, a lot of us get to start under supervision. So the umbrella term for all of us would be counseling psychologists. So even though I've done clinical psychology and my masters would lead me to give a chance to take up MPhil, I get to practice just from my masters, which would be as a counseling psychologist or a psychotherapist or a therapist, a counselor. So this would become an umbrella term for all of us. The third would be the psychiatrists who come under the MBBS category, the medical field.
Right.
They mainly focus on hospitals, they mainly focus on providing medications and treatment as well. And our field completely shifts from that focus where we only get to diagnose or provide treatment when it comes to non-medicated stuff.
Okay, wow. Kritika, I know like when you were, like pursuing dancing, you were also, doing your bachelor's.
Yes.
And now that you've completed your graduation, how well do you understand dance better in terms of, even when, when we are stressed out, we reach out to something, like something physical. Dance is also a movement and we always, like feel good after that. So how well you understand that now and how important it is for us in today's world where everybody is like hustling and really busy, like nobody even has time to even go out for a walk for that matter. So help us understand more on that aspect.
Whenever I think of the term dance and whenever I think of the hustle culture that we have, I realize that more so than dance, movement becomes more important because we spend most of our life using neck up. All of us do thinking, we're analyzing, we're trying to sit in front of a laptop for hours together, finishing work, and we don't notice what's happening in the beneath half of our body, which is holding all of that stress, that unsurmountable amount of grief that we have, or even the tension and the fear. All of them just get trapped in this below your neck. And the main issue that we face is that until it gets very overstimulating, we don't really address it because it's not noticeable as much. You might feel it as a tension in your neck or frozen shoulder, or your legs hurt, your back hurts. And the first solution we get is, okay, I need to step away from my laptop for a few minutes and maybe I'll get back to it then, because work doesn't stop. And I think at that point of time, even if dance is not something that comes to your mind, movement surely should. And I think that is something that's missing in most of our practice because we don't really understand that importance of movement. Because when you move, it forms as a way for your body to express all of this stress. It's a way for it to release all of the stressors, and if that is not done regularly, there's obviously going to be physical language that is coming from your body that's telling you to stop completely. So burnout, anxiety, terms that we constantly hear in our field now, has a lot more to do with this fact that you don't move, that you don't step away from work to take that minute to, even if it's just a stretch, play a song that you like, just sway around. When you're cooking, just sway around in your kitchen, spend a few minutes out and just take a deep breath, focus on your lungs, focus on your chest, the way it heaves, move your arms, hug yourself. All of these are very tiny movements that can be done right on your chair, or it can happen right next to your table. You're so scared to move away from your laptop, you can still look at it. And I think when that movement starts, your body gets to express all of that pent up energy and you start feeling a lot more lighter. And when you think about Indian culture and dance forms that we have, Bharatanatyam, Kathak, they all start with the base point of Abhinaya. It's not just performance, it's not just entertainment. Dance is not limited to that. It comes to expression of those feelings, those inner stories that we have of joy, grief, and I guess somewhere along that line we've lost that narrative of dance forms in general.
True.
So I think connecting back to that would be a good way for us to remember that no matter what movement we do, it's helping our mental health because it's a way for your body to not just express but also release, for you to transform in general.
Yeah. I think in our field, it's not really often spoken about, how dance actually impacts mental health. It's more so about the fitness, the physical fitness. Like people even sometimes sign up for classes like Zumba because they just want to like feel good after that, and they sweat it out. But nobody actually even talk about, yeah, this cleared up, my mind is clear, I'm happy, I'm feeling a little lighter. Even for me, there are days when I'm like super low, even on energy, I'm like completely demotivated, I don't want to even go for classes. But then when I push myself and I complete those 2-hour class or even a 4-hour class or whatever, I'm left with feeling good. Yeah, I mean, I could do this, and I'm feeling so much lighter. Whatever emotions I was having previously, that all like just disappeared, and that entire day I'm like, just very calm, and like I'm all happy. So I want you to, like help me break this down, how this actually technically, like in psychology, how this works, and how a dancer also should give herself breaks in between, because we are also like constantly hustling. Even when we take up dancing as our career, it becomes a career, it becomes a business. Even we are burnt out at times. So I want you to like give us tips on how we can also like keep our mental health good. Yeah.
It's really nice to hear you say that, because I remember when I was dancing with you, and every time it was during the evenings, so it would be after a long day of college, and I would come, and a part of me would already be drained from all the work that we had, be it academics. And I would remember that, hey, this is 1 hour that I get to completely focus on me, and I get to just move. And movement in general, just swaying my body, was something that was always very fascinating to me, because as you said, even if it's just the smallest of movements, even if it's just us practicing, I remember that it would bring so much of energy within, because your body loves to move. There's a whole part of you that it just gets to express it. And language and spoken word is not something that is the only way we learn to express. And I think Indian culture in specific is a beautiful example of that. We have poetry, we have music, we have so many forms of art that we choose as an expression, not just speaking or languages that we know as spoken words. And I guess in that way, there are a lot of things that you can't articulate with words, especially when it comes to feelings that are larger than yourself, or there are emotions that just don't make sense to you to like coherently piece and cognitively plan in your head. So in those moments, if you just, be it a stomp of your foot, or even if it's a sway of your arm, and if you're just, even if it means just falling to the ground in the middle of a dance, and you're letting yourself feel, mindfully being there present, I feel like you get to express that feeling of anger, or that feeling of longing, or even that feeling of excitement or sadness and grief that you might hold within. And I guess in that way, every time a person gets to express it mindfully, it becomes a way that you get to speak in a completely different way. You get to speak through your body, a language that your body knows since you were a kid.
Right.
So whenever you, as you mentioned, every time you push yourself to perform and practice, even to go back to classes, that's the line that I guess people who teach art forms and people who have technical professions kind of have a line, because you have to enjoy what you do but also make it a business.
Yes.
So drawing that line in your head is, I think, where that burnout also comes from, because you can maintain presence, you can tell yourself that I'm going to mindfully practice today. I'm going to teach them a technique that brings joy to me. I know that it will bring joy to my students, but somewhere along the line, when you keep doing it, you lose that presence, because it kind of becomes second nature.
Yeah.
You perform and practice because it's so your body is used to it. So somewhere along the line, your mind slips into, oh, I have other work to do, I have that to do, I have this to do, and you lose your presence there. So your body is no longer expressing; it's only moving.
Right.
So I guess a part of you, whenever you get to perform and whenever you get to teach and you get that energy back, I think it's you mindfully moving your body around and focusing on every turn that you take and every minute that you spend there. And I feel like you genuinely enjoy it, which is why you just get back all of that energy. You get to express through your body and you have all of that energy coming back.
Yeah, I think for me sometimes, even if I just go out into the nature, just look at anything green, it just refreshes my mind. And whenever I'm getting any ideas, it's not, when I'm like sitting or like even taking classes, it's always, out of nowhere, when I'm sitting in the nature or even when I'm like taking shower, I get these ideas. So I think for a dancer, it's again something, even a dancer can be mentally depressed, but the thing is they put a barrier, like when they walk into the class, they can't show those emotions because they are carrying, but like people are signing up because they want to feel good, at the end of the day. So when you take those it doesn't work that way, right? So even before entering the class, you need to leave all that behind and even have that pretense that yeah, I'm okay, I'm gonna do this class. So I have seen these scenarios in dancers, even within me. So sometimes even the dancers, they don't prioritize mental health. So what would you advise for a dancer to really like tune back in, really listen to yourself? Sometimes we get lost. So how do we take care of our mental health as well?
It's so sad to hear it sometimes because there are so many of us who have to put up this pretense. And I think therapists as well, I think relate most to you guys because you have to sit there and you don't get to bring your own problems. You sit there and you have to tell yourself, I am a blank wall today. I'm going to be completely objective and I'm going to let my client speak.
That's one of the toughest jobs.
I feel like getting to do that as a dancer is also difficult because you're emoting, you're showing emotions, but they're not yours. So it has to be a very difficult space for you to, it's a very evident place where you're pretending. And that in itself can be very exhausting because it's not what your body wants to say, but you're forcing it. And sometimes I guess the only thing you can do is take a pause and step back because something that's very important for us therapists as well is self-care. It becomes very much more important. And in that way, the way you said that you step out in nature and you catch that breath of air, it makes you feel so much more better. It's because it forms a sense of break for you from monotony, from routine. Because routine and practices, they feel safe as much as they're constricting. Because it's so much easier to not look at change. But when you give yourself that change, when you step away and take that short break, you take that vacation, take a week off, you get to connect back to your body. You get to sit back and say, okay, tell me what you're going through so that I can listen to myself. Tell me where it hurts so that I can heal. And just taking that break, even when you're performing, I'm pretty sure somewhere in between, when you're really enjoying a performance, you can feel yourself just kind of exuding that sense of energy that you're passing around to the people, and they get to enjoy it so much more. So in the same way, I guess a part of you needs to also sit down with that energy and just ask yourself, where am I not letting this express? Where am I holding it back? And I guess it's a language that your body knows best than your mind. So just let it speak, I guess.
Wow, that was very insightful. I have so much to learn from you. If you're a belly dancer, this is the right place for you to shop your favorite belly dance hip scarves, silk fan veils, dance pants, and many more at Ballerina's Closet. Shop now and get 10% off on your order. For someone who isn't a dancer but wants to use movement, for their mental wellness, what are the practices that they can inculcate in their daily routine, at home? So, what would you suggest?
I would say start simple because in most of our technical professional settings and hustle culture and the way that the world is framed, you don't get to take a lot of breaks. You don't get to take lengthy breaks. So you'll have to make do with the little amount of time that you get. Even if you're having an entire overstimulated moment where you're stressed, you're anxious with what you're going through, your heart's racing, you physically cannot look at your laptop or work anymore, and you still are forced to sit there. So I guess instead of letting it get to that extent and letting it turn into burnout where you completely lose joy in the things that you do, you lose the passion that you have, it would be better to take simpler steps that you can routinely add into your system in itself. Even if it is as small as just focusing on how you lay your feet on the ground, focusing on moving it side to side, how your heel moves and shifts until you reach your toe. Even if it is just to focus on your breathing. Lift your arms up as you inhale, drop them as you exhale. Try to notice where that movement is taking you. And I guess it's also just to understand that these little movements in itself will build for you to have a lot more energy. It will build for you to be able to express yourself better. Sometimes when you're really stressed and when you're really anxious or you're just tired, you start slouching. You start completely circling yourself into a ball. You crumple yourself inwards. So sometimes just taking that space, stretching out, moving your shoulders, open your arms wide, just lie down on the ground if necessary. Where you're just taking up space, you get to express yourself a lot more easily, a lot more freely. And even in therapy, movements like these, when somebody is stiff when they're discussing something, or if they are so used to putting up a face that says, no, I'm completely fine, I'm completely strong, it's okay. But you can see physically they're so bogged down by it.
Right.
You just ask them to stand up, you ask them to move a little, you let them express that through their body instead, and just mentally you get a little bit more clarity. So I guess incorporating it a little by little into your life becomes a lot more easier when you don't see it as a chore. And I guess the biggest difference that would draw a line is that you don't need to be trained as a dancer, you don't need to be, it doesn't have to be a performance for you to have mental health be a part of your learning and movement. It just has to be presence. You just need to focus, you just need to pay attention to what your body is saying.
Yeah, that's very important what you mentioned, that you don't have to be a dancer to actually want to dance, you know. I think that notion, if you just let it go, it's okay. Like, we don't have to be perfect at something. So that's what in this culture, like today, like if you're taking up something, you need to excel at it. But that's not a thing. Maybe I'm not good at painting, but I like to paint. Go ahead and do that. I think that's a very important point that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And dance therapy is a thing. I've heard that it's also becoming like a subject globally. What do you think about dance therapy in itself, and do you see, is there any future of dance therapy in our country?
You know, it's really interesting because dance and movement therapy is a complete part of psychotherapy in itself. It's a whole other branch that you get to learn. It's a complete other specialization that you get to practice with, because movement is so important, right? It's like speaking a completely different language. You're expecting a person, the entire notion of dance and movement therapy is that your body knows a little bit more. Your body embodies and understands what's going through. And you're just giving it space to speak. You believe that even if words are not able to provide you the vocabulary to understand, your body internally knows what you've been through. And it's a way of saying that your body can remember everything that's happened to you as a person, even if your mind forgets it. So the entire notion and practice would be to not listen and speak, but to focus completely on how your body moves. And maybe sometimes your body tells you more than you could have expected. You understand that there must have been some part of you that's been holding back. There might have been a part of you that wanted to be vulnerable, but you never got a chance to. But when you're physically embodying it, you're just letting yourself express that emotion completely through your body and bones. It starts not only telling you about your body, your biology of your body, but it starts speaking your family, about your culture, your memory, even your traumas. So giving yourself the space to express completely, even if it is exaggerated emotions that come out of your body, just letting yourself feel it just through your body is a great way for you to understand where exactly maybe something that might not be something your brain remembers now. So dance and movement therapy in general is a very interesting direction that psychology has taken. And in India as well, we have an entire culture full of traditions, full of rituals and rhythm. So incorporating dance and movement therapy, I think, will be a lot more easier in India because we already know the language for it. It's already inbuilt in all of us.
But I don't think many people are aware
That is
this
true.
exists, right? So how can we make this, how can we try to educate the mass about, dance therapy, dance and movement therapy?
I guess the potential, when I think about opportunities, are vast. There is a lot of potential for us to mainly explain that movement in itself is something that you can focus on even if it is not training in dance. So forming that distinction in itself, allowing people to understand that movement, no matter in what form, and dance, no matter in what way that you practice, is something that's innate. It doesn't have to be trained, it doesn't have to be performative, it just has to be expressive. So letting a person understand that no matter what kind of dance that they perform, it doesn't have to be about grace, it doesn't have to be about the way that the person is portraying themselves. It can be about just expressing what you understand. It can be through those gestures, the rhythms, just narrating your story through your body instead of your mouth. So it kind of becomes, I think, a lot more easier if it is awareness is developed not just by psychologists but also by dancers in general. I've noticed that a lot of dance classes now, they start explaining beforehand. When they're teaching children or when they're teaching all of these new students, they explain how it can help them, not just physically but also mentally. So explaining about how physically it's been helping is something that's been developing a lot more, which is why there's so much interest in learning dance for fitness. So much more interest in understanding that, hey, I don't just have to go to the gym or exercise, I can do something that's also considered fun for me. So somewhere along that line, letting go of that critical inner person that's telling you, hey, you're supposed to do it a certain way, letting that go would be a place where a person can accept this a lot more easily.
Yeah.
But I see the problem with that as well.
Yes.
Because telling a person that there is this experiential way that you can practice mental health, and you tell them that there's so much research about this, you tell them that there is so much scientific baggage, but of course a client might find it very baseless. And even as a person, as a psychologist, there are so many of us who might not consider this the place, hey, I don't think movement is the only way we can understand body work or like mental health in general, or it might not be the way for me to understand what this person's going through. But when you look at people who are multilingual or people who have a difficult time accepting therapy in general, the stigma for mental health in itself is so high, maybe the stigma for dance is not that bad. So they might just choose dance and movement therapy as a better option to understand themselves a lot more freely, because hey, I'm just going to dance. It's a way that they can let go of that stigma to an extent. But I guess, yeah, a lot more practitioners, a lot more trainers related to dance and movement therapy will have to start and develop that awareness.
Coming back to this again, so I just wanted to ask you, is dance going to act as a therapy, or for example, say I am not doing okay, but I take up dance, but would that dance just be enough for me, or should I also take up therapy sessions as well? So just asking you that if dance is enough, just alone, is it enough and acts as a therapy?
I think that's why the training for dance and movement therapy in general becomes so important, because not everybody can incorporate movement into therapy. And in the same way, not every dancer might be able to incorporate it into mental health. So I guess the training that they go through, the practice that they get to do in dance and movement therapy in specific would be forming that middle ground between understanding mental health and that entire field, but also understanding dance and movement in general, the somatic state of a person. So I guess, no, you won't be able to completely understand your mental state by just dance. But somebody who's trained in dance and movement therapy might be able to help you better. If a dancer goes to therapy basically focusing on this particular kind of therapy, I guess they would also be able to understand the nuances of what a dancer might be going through, because they form that middle ground. And yeah, I think the main issue that India is facing currently is that the training that's happening, that's available within India for dance and movement therapy is limited to metropolitan cities. So if somebody wants to incorporate movement into therapy, they'll have to piece together training or workshop and virtual classes that they might have attended, as well as international courses that they might have taken. And that again would kind of lessen the value or essence of what they get to learn, because they don't get to physically incorporate it, or they don't get to feel it for themselves. They don't get to understand completely of how it might feel to be part of that group, that circle that gets to practice it. So I think those are a little bit of the problems that we're currently facing in India to incorporate this a lot more. But again, not everybody who is trained in psychology in general can incorporate movement just as much, because there will be more harm caused than damage. There will be more harm caused than good. And I think at that point, supervision and training becomes a lot more important, just like any other form of therapy that we take up. So every person practicing in therapy in general, just like how dancers practice for dance, is something that we'll have to incorporate. A teacher who can help us out, somebody we can discuss all of this with, becomes a lot more important.
I think even till today, mental health still carries stigma. In spite of celebrities like Deepika Padukone talking about it, but still, in some households, people still hesitate to reach out to a therapist if they are in need of help. So what would you tell them, and how can they can come out of that bubble and really like reach out to a therapist and not feel like, okay, I'm going to be exposed, or is my information safe, and like stuff like that, because all those worries, that fear still is there. So what would you tell if that's the situation?
That's very true, because I think half of the stigma we face is log kya kahenge.
Yeah.
Every other person that's around us is constantly, the neighborly communal environment and culture that we have, somewhere along the line kind of becomes nosy instead, that your personal information is no longer part of just you. Somebody around you might get to know it, or you're somebody that prefers to be by yourself, and that in itself becomes a topic of discussion for people around you. So I guess all I can say is that there's no winning there. So you'll have to accept the fact that I'm doing this for me. But then again, noticing that some problem might be there, or there is something about my life that I want to work on, or understanding that, hey, maybe my mental health is not at its best. Maybe I am not understanding my emotions to the level that I would want to. And being open to just discussing that in general is something that would have to be the first step we can take to understanding or discussing problems of mental health. Being able to openly say, hey, I guess I'm not doing my best today, and I want to discuss this with my friends. Or maybe today I'm not able to put all of my efforts into work today. I guess I should take a break. And being nicer to ourselves or kinder to ourselves, being able to listen to ourselves, is something that is completely removed from the kind of life that we lead lately. So I guess in the idealistic way, a person would be able to understand, maybe I am not doing my best and I should take a break, and they'll be able to ask for help then. But even if it is not idealistic, practically I would say, whenever we try to develop awareness among patients that come in, especially when I was working in Mangalore, I remember that a lot of patients that we got were mainly locals, and their entire mindset was, I don't even come to a hospital when I'm physically not doing great. You expect me to come when I'm mentally not doing great? Because A, it's hard to afford, B, it's hard to reach out. And that mindset has been completely ingrained amongst all of us. But things are changing. A lot more amenities are available. Mental health as a field has grown. We're able to access it a lot more easier. So I guess that's what's building the conversations a little bit more. I guess therapy is not as expensive as we used to consider before. There are a lot of people who practice at a lower price, and there are a lot of people who even try to just build these awarenesses, providing these kind of awarenesses during NGOs or during workshops that they do it in schools and colleges. So I guess being able to understand that it is accessible becomes one of those main aspects as well, to reduce that sense of stigma that we have. But when I think about stigma, I guess a part of me is also thinking about dance and the kind of stigma that we have to just practice or learn dance, because it's all about training, it's all about performance, the makeup, the stage, the curtains.
True. Yeah.
You completely lose sight of, hey, maybe it's something that I get to do out of joy. I'm doing it to express my inner feeling of grief or anger.
Yes.
And that inner world is kind of getting completely lost when a person gets to learn. So that inner critic and that inner understanding that we have, I guess we'll have to reframe a little bit more.
Yes. I think that constant validation right now that everybody reaches out to. I mean, I'm not saying it is bad, but again, that has framed, the concept of dance like that way. Like even when, some students reach out to me for dance classes, is because they want to be able to like perform this, or like get some kind of recognition amongst their peers and family members. But yeah, like they don't understand that this is something you're doing it for yourself, a joy that is so beloved, that's so like close to you. So yeah, I think that's very, very important that we high time that we get out of it and really experience dance for what it is. All this comes, the fame, all of that comes secondary, and it won't even matter to you once you've really found that joy in movement in general.
That's
right?
very, very true. And, the first thought that came to my head when I was thinking about what you were saying is that I think we should just go back to our traditions in India, because culture and dance has been so ingrained among Indians. We learned how to emote through dance and through so many kinds of dance forms that we have and music before we even got the vocabulary to what expression is in mental health. So I guess it becomes so much more important. And dance in India in general has been something that's not just about performance. Like I said, Bharatanatyam and Kathak is all about bhava, the emotion that you have. It's all about abhinaya. You get to use gesture and rhythm to mention all of these stories and inner feelings. And when you think of communal dances like Bhangra or even Saidi, I remember when we were learning, it brings such a sense of communal expression and a sense of community for rhythm, more so than just getting to be a performance. And being able to see dance and other dance forms as a way to express based on these rhythms, based on these little gestures, and noticing that feeling that comes in you when you're trying to just express through all of this kind of becomes so much more important. It becomes a lot more vital for you to understand that, hey, maybe dance is not limited to a stage. Maybe me playing music in my kitchen and just shaking around is good enough for me to feel better if it is helping.
So true. Coming to the last question, because I know you represent the Gen Z generation, I want to understand, like how accepting they are of their emotions now. Like, is it changing? Are they accepting their, that even I would need those therapy sessions? Because I know in the older generations, in my parents' generation, so it's still like they don't know what this is, okay? And even in millennial, like, we shove it all inside and we just like, hey, let's keep moving on. But what are the changes you see in your generation, the positive changes, and how this is also going to shape the future of India's mental health?
Absolutely. That's such an interesting take, because just recently I had a patient who had come in who was in their 30s to 40s, and they were explaining how my parents did not come into this. My parents did fine. They've grown up now, they've retired now, they're doing okay. Why am I struggling when I'm doing something that's so similar to them? I am working for my family, I am doing it for me. I'm trying to focus on things to earn enough to take care of my family, and this stress is something that I'm not able to tolerate anymore. How is it that my parents' generation in general was able to handle so much more stress, and I'm not able to manage work even though I have it from home? And it's hilarious because when I see Gen Z kids, I know that most of us are either in college or like we're just graduating, starting to look for jobs, and we're like, we're not doing great. There's no employment available around. We have to figure out most of these stressors as well. So the approach in general is different from what my parents had, and I guess that change in mindset has brought mental health as a concept a lot more into our household languages, because all of our generation kids are discussing with their parents. They're able to tell their parents that, hey, I am stressed because the environment that I have to grow up in has been completely different. You had to travel, you had no access to things, but now we have access to everything. And that just turns so much more worse. Somehow it's a different problem, but we're still struggling.
Yeah.
And being able to notice that in general has led a lot more people, including a lot of parents, to finally accept that, okay, maybe they're just going through something different and we might not be able to provide answers, or we're doing our best to help, and that's the max that we are able to do. Maybe we just need somebody who has a different perspective to just discuss this with our kid. And that has made a lot more of younger people to accept mental health as more on the lines of, you know what, maybe I just need to discuss.
Right.
More so than seeing it as I need to get treatment or I'm not doing okay, they're seeing it as I don't really know what's happening, so I guess I want to understand it better. And that reframe in general is something that's pushing a lot more older people also into therapy. That reframe of I don't know what I'm understanding, or I probably don't know what I'm going through. So let me just try to understand it better. And that, I think, is a beautiful take from our generation to everybody when we come to mental health. That reframe has been really important.
Yes, that awareness amongst the generation right now, that's amazing. Awesome. Okay, if we want to have any kind of therapy sessions with you, how can we reach out to you?
So I am mainly available either on my phone number or my mail, and I guess we'll put both of them after
Sure,
on
yes.
this.
I will be putting down in the link in the description below, and you can reach out to her at that. Yeah.
And otherwise, I was recently told that I should act my generation and make an Instagram account for this, because
Yes, very much needed.
because apparently people would love for me to post more about all of this, because these are discussions I only have with friends or people who are peers for me in psychology. So they want me to be able to express this on social media a lot more. So I am starting an Insta account for that.
Yeah, exactly why I wanted to have today's conversation with you. You carry immense knowledge in this field, Kritika, and I'm so grateful to you for sharing all these valuable information to us, and also like bringing in awareness that there is something called as dance and mental health that exists, and you can always see it doesn't have to be just dance, it can be any kind of movement. Even if it makes you feel a little better for that day, I think we should consider that, and we need to talk more often about it than just considering dance as only a form of physical fitness.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, because I get to discuss a complete subfield that we don't get to talk much about even within our fields. And I was thinking about how there are so many resources, even if it's not to learn dance, because the broad internet is in our hands. I know that there are so many YouTube channels that teach the basics of somatic exercises, which can be the most simplest of movements that you can incorporate into your routine. There are channels which teach you about how you can do mindful dances. There are routines that you can take up, even if it is to practice at home or even if it is to learn at home. And I guess the absolute power that we have called the internet is a great extra point that we can use. You can use technology to learn more about things like these, especially now that you know that it's an existing topic. So thank you for letting me speak about this in front of people.
It was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into Dancing Dialogues with Nikita Krishnan. I truly hope that this episode was educational, inspirational, and you could take something out of it. If you loved the episode, don't forget to share and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Until then, keep dancing and stay inspired.